But Jordan Schultz in this revelation says that
Jordan
Brock's
just came off vacation, apparently.
going to get 50 to 55 million
Sure.
annually.
Okay.
And a lot of people reacted negatively to that. And to me, it's just like, wait a second. The top quarterback is Prescott. He's making, as far as salary, he's making 60. There's a whole slew of guys making between 50 and 60 who haven't done anything. Purdy's got a better resume than most of them. And the quarterback market always seems like it's going up, and the cap is always going up. And I could make a very compelling argument that he should get a contract north of Prescott's 60 million. If indeed this report by Schultz is accurate, I think this is the most encouraging thing I've heard on the Purdy front yet. Why? Because to me, if Schultz is saying that this deal is going to arrive around 50 to 55 million, one, I don't believe him. I do think that's a little on the low end. I'll stay with my prediction of 56 million AAV. But either way, what it tells me is two things. One, it sounds like Brock's agent, Kyle Strongen, has got into that space where it's going to be a great deal for Brock and take care of him well, very, very handsomely. Mm-hmm. But it's also going to be a bargain for the 49ers, because I think paying this quarterback $50 million, $51 million, $52, $53, I think that is, in the grand scheme of things, a relative bargain. I know there are people out there that are saying Mahomes makes 45.
That's different. It's a fundamentally different contract, and Allen has a fundamentally different contract. Those are contracts.
They have huge years and huge guarantees.
And they're made to be restructured in the future, and there's no way for the teams to get out of them.
I like the 50 to 55 mil. I think that's the win-win. I think that takes care of Brock and gets him, a lifetime of wealth and generational wealth, and it secures his future. Mm-hmm. But it also leaves enough meat on the bone for the Niners to go build a team around him. I think it's a reasonable number. If it is between 50 and 55, it's definitely high, but it's definitely not new. It's not precedent setting high. And that seems like where the contracts have been for quarterbacks. They've been on precedent setting type deals. I think 50 to 55, if that is ultimately roughly where this thing lands, I think that's good news for everybody. I really do. What do you think?
Jalen Hurts makes 51. Lamar Jackson makes 52. Justin Herbert makes 52. Jared Goff makes 53. Tua makes 53-1. They had to get that extra $100,000 in there. Trevor Lawrence makes 55. Jordan Loves makes 55. Josh Allen makes 55. Joe Burrow makes 55. And Dak makes 60. If you slide Brock Purdy in there anywhere, would it look out of place? No, not in the least bit.
I mean, it would if you gave him 65.
No, I mean, if you slid him in there, right? So he has to fit somewhere between 50 and 60.
Yeah, I mean, I think the
52, would it look weird if it was?
It's just the lower number makes it better. Makes it better for Brock, because I think what this year showed is that he's a good quarterback, mm-hmm. but that he needs talent around him, and that he should be incentivized to take a little bit less than top of the market to guarantee that he is surrounded by a good surrounding cast.
To be fair, I don't give a flying fuck what his average AAV is, because it does not matter. It doesn't matter. It's fake money. It's just something for the headlines. We're talking about this with Brandon Ayuk, right? Oh, Brandon Ayuk makes $30 million a year. Not really. Not really. He makes like 7 plus a bonus here and an injury guarantee here. And these contracts are so convoluted and optioned up that the idea that it's like the NBA and here's your number every year, you're getting paid as much as Steph Curry, is ludicrous. It's the total guarantees and truly the fully guaranteed money. So I don't care if the 49ers wanted to pay Brock Purdy $70 million a year, but they guaranteed 10% of it. If they pulled a Diamador Lenore at quarterback money, where, Diamador Lenore got $92 million from the 49ers. Well, actually got like 12. And somebody didn't read the fine print all that well on Diamador Lenore's side, because the Niners can effectively just use the next 4 years of his contract as a player option Not even that. Sorry, a team option. They can just say, "Yeah, we don't want you anymore." They're off scot-free. And if they want to keep you, they can keep you at a lower rate effectively every year in perpetuity. It's a great contract for the 49ers. And so the devil is in those details. So everyone is going to freak out over the average amount per year. But let's use Jordan Love as an example. He has a $220 million contract, supposedly. He makes $55 million a year, supposedly. But his total guarantees are almost $100 million less than Josh Allen. He has $100 million in fully guaranteed. And if the Green Bay Packers, which they very well might want to do, decide, hey, we're going to get off of this guy after the 2026 season, they can do it relatively easily. Now, they can't particularly do it over the next 2 years because there would be, is that correct? $100 million in dead cap money? Yes, that would be the 2026 dead cap is $100 million. But these are all, it's a 5-year deal. It's a 2-year deal. All of these deals, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, Goff, Herbert to a degree, Hurts has got a wild one. Hurts has like 9 years of void years. They're all just 2-year deals. And with the salary cap going up the way that the salary cap is going up, you're not in any sort of trouble. Think about what the Falcons are doing. Think about what the Browns are doing. Now, are both of those teams in trouble? Maybe that's not the best example, but they can just say, Kirk, you're benched, and we'll just keep you around for a year because it's easier to keep you around than it is to get rid of you. And we might, we're paying you either way, so we might as well get something from you. Deshaun Watson, I mean, in their, the Browns' minds, thank God he got injured, and now they'll be able to get some sort of injury settlement on some sort of it. But they're going to be able to draft a quarterback, and they'll have a cheap quarterback. The same reason that Brock Purdy kept Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch employed, in that, hey, you know how we really messed up with Garoppolo, and then we really messed up with Lance, but hey, we lucked into Brock Purdy. There's always an opportunity for redemption in the NFL because these contracts aren't the NBA. You're not stuck with Ben Simmons on your team. You're not stuck with Jordan Poole on your team. You can move off of anybody at any time, and you might take a hit. You might have to eat it for a year, the way the Niners are doing right now with Debo and maybe Ayuk. But ultimately, you can always move on, and these contracts are always more flimsy than they appear to be when we talk about $55 million a year, because they're just not that well written, and I'm just not going to worry about it. Now, on the flip side of all of that, I'll say this. I don't think it behooves Brock to sign right now. I think that if Brock Purdy wants to if he's really pushing, and there has been suggestion, I won't call it anything further than that, but suggestion in recent days that he's really pushing for a big number. He wants to be on the higher end of that 50 to 60 scale that I just ran through. He wants to be above the Lawrences and above the Loves. He wants to be with Burrow and Allen and Prescott because he was 24 years old and he took a team to the Super Bowl. He has a decent enough argument there. If he wants that, the 49ers should not give it to him coming off of a down year. They shouldn't. They should say, we have all the power in this situation. You're under contract for this upcoming season. We can franchise tag you for about $45 million the year after that, and you can continue to bet on yourself. And at some point, you might win. You might go full Dak Prescott. You might go full Kirk Cousins, and we will have to pay you top of the line because you have bet on yourself now double, triple, 3 times the money, and we'll have to eat it for whatever that top value is. But we're willing to take that risk because we have enough questions. And going back to Ayuk, isn't that what they should have done with it? If you put a gun to their head right now, half of the front office was already thinking it. And now the other half, who was all about giving them the money, they definitely tell you now, we should have just let him play out the 5th-year option. We just shouldn't have dicked around with the contract. Let him bet on himself again. We could have franchised him.
You think that's what they should do?
I think that if we're talking about top 5 money in the NFL, he's not a top 5 quarterback. And I do think that there's a push come to shove. And if I'm the 49ers, I'm willing.
Dak Prescott's number 1. Is he the best quarterback?
No, but Dak Prescott bet on himself repeatedly on multiple franchise tags. So this is the bet. That's the
I think they should just get it done. Get it done. Lock up your guy. That has not been a good thing for Dallas. Dallas got a quarterback at a way too high a price.
So why are you going to
They've
give
been
him
a gigantic distraction for 3 years. He has terrible feelings about them. They have terrible feelings about him. There's rumors that they're going to trade him to Cleveland. It hasn't worked out for the Cowboys.
But okay, so the idea is that Dak, who worked the system, much like Kirk Cousins did, worked the system year after year, and you're saying that built up animosity and all that. Fair enough. But you're saying that a guy who worked the system and won, he won. The Dallas Cowboys.
No, he didn't win. He hasn't won. He got money.
But we're talking about the money. We're talking about the money. He played the game to its fullest extent. The only position you can do this at, by the way, and say, I'll take the franchise tax. I'll take that guaranteed money on the franchise tax is quarterback. Every other position would be a fool to do this. But because quarterbacks have longevity in this league and they're protected in this league, you can do it. It's the Kirk Cousins route. Dak Prescott did the same thing. He won fiscally. He got the biggest contract in NFL history. He won fiscally. The Dallas Cowboys were left with no choice but to give it to him. Why would you give it to Brock Purdy when he hasn't earned it yet? Why would you give?
You've been to a Super Bowl? I think he has earned it.
But we're not.
He
talking
came from behind against Detroit. He came from behind against Green Bay.
Listen,
he's
I'm
carried
not arguing
you.
that. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy isn't
take
worthy
care
of
of
a
him
very
now.
good deal.
The price is only going up.
You're taking care of him beyond the. There is a threshold. The threshold is 55. That's my number. You can't go above 55. 55 is as high as you can pay this guy because otherwise you're giving him.
The report is he's going to get between 50 and 55. So why are we talking about over 55?
Jordan Schultz was about 3 weeks late on everything. The money might have already gone up.
The question was, what do you think of him getting between 50 and 55? And you've gone off on this long diatribe about what if he gets paid more. The question was, what if he gets paid between 50 and 55?
I don't like the idea of the 49ers even entertaining the 55. I don't want him to be on the top half of that. Would it fit? Would it be fine? Whatever. I don't really give that much of a damn.
But it's all going up there. I mean, he's as good as Tua. Tua's making 53.
Yeah, but they can get off of Tua very easily. This is probably Tua's last year.
Fine, then structure it so you can get off of Brock. But I mean, he deserves the same AAV as a Tua Tagovailoa.
I don't know if anyone deserves anything. I mean, this is I hate that terminology.
I mean, there's a precedent. There's a market. I mean, there is a market. Whether the Niners want to acknowledge it, whether you want to acknowledge it, whether anybody wants to acknowledge it, there is a market, and the market is the existing contracts.
What's the worst thing you can do though if you're the 49ers? Is the worst thing that you can do is what you just laid out, the Dak Prescott thing. The worst thing you can do is pay a middle of the road quarterback top of the market money, right? Is that fair to say?
It's $50 to $55 million.
I'm just
what we're talking about. We're not talking about the top of the market. We're talking about the report that said that he's going to get between $50 and $55 million.
If he gets a cent more than $55 million, he is the second highest paid player in the history of the NFL.
You have Lawrence making 55. You've got other guys making 55.
They all make exactly 55. If he makes $1 more, he has the second largest quarterback in the history of the NFL. In a
Jimmy Garoppolo at one point made the most of any quarterback in the NFL. So I mean, this is the way NFL quarterbacks work. This is the way the pricing has gone. I mean, I shouldn't have to explain this. This is pretty obvious. Everybody knows.
No one's arguing that the price is going to keep going up. My argument is you don't have to pay.
The guy who signs the most recent deal gets the most. That's what happens. That's the way this thing has gone. So I don't know why it would suddenly change.
It hasn't suddenly changed. My argument is pretty simple. First off, I disagree with the assessment. While yes, the newest guy gets the most, the newest guy gets more than he probably should because of inflation. That doesn't mean he gets the most. Has Brock Purdy proven himself to be a market setter?
He's done more in his career than Dak Prescott.
But has he done enough in his career to be a market setter?
Well, I really don't know or care, but I mean, he's done more than most quarterbacks his age have done. I mean,
and the fact that we're talking about this kind of money is very indicative of that.
But how many quarterbacks, 24, have taken a team to the Super Bowl? How many quarterbacks at this age have won the level that he's won at? He's a good quarterback.
No question about it.
The question is not, I don't want to get, we only have a half hour. We can't go on for this forever. The question is, what do you think of the 50 to 55 million dollars, if that report is accurate, what does that tell you about these negotiations, either about Brock's side or the Niners side? Do you think the Niners have a good deal? You think Brock's got a good deal? But that's the number. I don't think we need to filibuster on this, all these other high numbers, because that's not the report. I mean, there's no real, unless you know of a report that I don't know of.
There's another report that was 57 a week ago. Like
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's between 50 and 55, that's a pretty wide range, and it doesn't seem like anything is going to be getting done anytime soon, because there's a very different connotation to each of those numbers. 50 is a connotation of, hey, the 49ers won, even if there's going to be a subsection of people who any number above $30 million is way too much money for them. Those people can't be helped. If we're talking 55, yeah, sure, that's the same as Lawrence and Tua and Love, but it's also the same as Allen and Burrow. And again, all of this comes down to the guaranteed money, so that's really what matters. But what it tells me is that Brock Purdy isn't going to be settling for some discount rate so that he can have the security of, I have a contract, I can get a new contract down the line, let's get this thing done and let's get this thing over with. It tells me that his side is looking for the big payday now, and that what was 50 to 55 could then very well turn into, actually, it might be 56. It might be 57. Maybe we push more. Maybe we push for more. Maybe we go for the big one. And if we're in that mindset and I'm the 49ers, I just say, you know what? There's a $45 million franchise guarantee coming your way in 26. You're under contract for 25. We're going to make our best offer. Let's call it 51. What was the number? You think he's going 57? What was 56?
Well, no, this report said 50 to 55.
No, I know. I know Jordan Schultz said 50 to 55.
Yeah. I
maybe what I'm beating around the bush is that I don't put a lot of stock in Jordan Schultz.
He'll get slightly over that, I think. But I mean, once again, there's just so many people that are just like losing their mind. I mean, I'm reading Grant's thing. Grant's like, "Oh, trade him and go with Aaron Rodgers." It's like, what? You got?
No,
come on.
Listen.
Really? We're going to go with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, how many quarters, forget games, how many quarters of play before Aaron Rodgers is knocked out for the year behind this 49er offensive line?
Hey, but you have Mac Jones, so what's the problem?
But I mean, you're saying go for Aaron Rodgers and trade
stupid.
Brock Purdy. I mean,
there's
a part of the Niner audience that is just morally opposed to paying Brock Purdy, and they're just going to bitch and complain and moan endlessly about what they pay him, and nothing, any amount's going to be too high, and it's like no market. It doesn't matter what Tua makes. It doesn't matter what this guy makes. It doesn't matter what that guy makes. You just can't pay Brock. Don't pay Brock. Like, it's going to be the ruination of the 49ers. And to me, if they pay him what they're rumored to be paying him, 50 to 55 million, I think that's a screaming deal. Because everything's going up. Everything's going up. How many times you've heard this? 2 years from now, it's going to be a hell of a deal. And it's always the case because the numbers always go up. So you're
Jordan Love or
2 years from now. 2 years from now, all those deals are going to look pretty reasonable by comparison.
Sure. I don't disagree. We're going to have a $70 million quarterback here soon. Yeah. I mean, CJ Stroud's going to get $70 million a year. So like, I'm not pinching pennies. I'm not worried about him. By the way,
nobody wants to go long term because that's the way to keep it down. You go long term. You want to keep it down. You want to keep the AAV down. Well, do a big money long term deal with a massive guarantee, and then you can keep that AAV down 45, 50, between 45 and 55 million, easy, no problem.
But the fact that you're not willing to do that is all the more reason to consider the quote unquote nuclear option. And just say, you know what? Let's see what you can do for us this year. And you're going to come back and you're going to make more money. If you have a better year in 2025, and we know that we're not giving you the best weaponry, we know that, it's a bad circumstance, but if you come back and you have a better year than you did in 24 and 25, you can come to the table and say, we're starting at 60 and we have no recourse. If I'm the 49ers, I'm willing to bet it. I'm willing to make that bet.
I don't like that at all.
You always have the franchise tag. I don't like to play the Kirk Cousins game.
I don't like that at all. At all. The last thing you need to be doing is fucking around with your starting quarterback and playing these money games. And it's like, it's one thing to challenge your quarterback by having good competition and having somebody else there that can take his job. It's another thing to sit there and talk out of both sides of your mouth. And if you want me to run through walls for you, you better take care of me. You better not talk through both sides of your mouth. You better not over on this side of your mouth say, you're my guy, and over here say, you're not my guy. I don't trust you. I'm going to dangle the carrot for another 3 years and I'm not taking care of you. That's how you create bad vibes, dysfunction. And I think there's a better way to do it. There's a better way to challenge your quarterback to be the best he can be than basically saying you're our guy endlessly and then not walking the walk. If you're going to talk the talk and say you're our guy, then take care of your guy.
I agree with that. But it doesn't seem as if they're too keen to do it in any expedited fashion.
Yeah, well,
and I'll say this: that's
probably true too.
I'm not concerned about being logically sound. Clearly that's not my issue here. But like, I'm not concerned about the 49ers and all that. I'm making the bet not to motivate him or anything. I'm making the bet because there is an inkling of doubt in my mind that he ain't the guy.
That's why you go short term.
That's fair. That's a hedge. That's a hedge.
That is your hedge. That's the way you hedge. Here's the thing.
I don't think
I don't know if my wife is the one. Okay, well, guess what? That's kind of a bad situation, right? But there's different ways to deal with that. And maybe if there's some money on the line, maybe a prenup, but I'm just saying that is their hedge. But go short term with the quarterback. He'll understand that. That's his.
Will he sign
that's
it?
Your hedge.
Will he sign it?
But yeah, I think if you're taking, I think that's what we're going to see here. Is I think the Niners are going to go short term. They're going to go with $100 to $120 million guaranteed. And you're going to see money that's greater than $97.5 million is what he would get on the franchise tags over the next 3 years, and with his guaranteed money. And so it has to be a better deal than that. And so I think what you're going to look at is, maybe a 3-year deal for, $165 million with, $120 million guaranteed, something like that. I think that's what you're going to see. It's going to be big money. They're going to commit. It's going to be short term, so they're going to have a way out. But I think they're going to take care of him and commit up front and get that contract done. I don't think they're going to pull a Prescott. I think they understand the value of having this done, and also since he's your hardest worker, he's got to be in the right frame of mind. And to me, making him play in the franchise tag is the absolute wrong move because it sends a terrible message. It sends like we're not even sure about you. And if you've openly stated publicly that he's your guy, you better be a little bit more solid on him than we're not sure about you.
But by coming out and constantly saying he's the guy, we got big plans, he's our guy. If I'm rocking his agent, it's just like, man, that's dollar signs every time I hear it. Oh, because totally. Now we got you. Now you're going to be the ones who lied. We haven't done anything.
But here's the thing. What's the best number? The best number for Brock is not the biggest number. The best number is a number in between the biggest number and the lowest number that somehow makes you feel satisfied, takes care of you, gives you and your wife and your family security.
It's all such ridiculous money, no matter what.
But also you get that security, but you also have a line. You also have players. The one thing this year should have said to everybody is that Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, but Brock Purdy can't do it by himself. And there's no crime in that, by the way. He was making $1 million fucking.
What are they going to do when he makes 50x that?
But I mean, there's no crime in you can't do it by yourself. There's this guy named Patrick Mahomes.
No,
he's pretty good. He couldn't do it by himself.
That you should do it by yourself. My point
can't do it by yourself. So you have to take less money.
Let's go logically on that team. Let's go logically on that front. They couldn't get it done for Brock Purdy and put the team around him when he was making $1 million a year. They couldn't do it then. What happens when he goes to 50? Why should Brock Purdy trust the 49ers? in this situation.
Well, it's not about trust. What choices does he have? He doesn't have he can't just go wherever he wants. This is the team.
He doesn't have to sign.
He's got to make the best of it.
He
That's
doesn't
what he's
have
got
to
to
sign
do.
any contract.
He's smart enough to know the 49ers are not the worst team in pro football. Kyle Shanahan's not the worst team in pro football. He's not surrounded by the worst weapons in pro football. He doesn't have the worst line in pro football. There are worse places he could be. He's smart enough to know that. So he knows it. He knows that. And so he's going to try to make it happen.
He can also be like, hey, you guys couldn't get it done for me when I was making nothing. Now you're telling me I got to take a haircut so that you can put a better team around. Why do I trust you to do that?
Haircut? You're getting a massive raise. Haircut? What haircut are you talking about? You make $900,000.
No. I have to make. Instead of making the number that I want, I have to make a number that's then palatable for everybody. So that
I would say to Brock. I mean, this is a This is not even a Niner conversation. This is Brock and Kyle Strong and have this conversation. Hey, Brock, what do we want? Yeah. In an ideal world, what do you want? You want every dollar on the table?
Of course.
Or do you want to leave some of those dollars on the table so they could sign an offensive lineman or two or three or a defense? So the booby prize, sometimes being right is the booby prize. Sometimes the highest price is the booby prize. You don't want the highest price. You want to be like Tom Brady. You want to be like Patrick Mahomes. You want to get paid, have security, be taken care of, and be able to have enough money for the rest of your roster spread around so that you can win.
Totally.
That's what you need.
Of course you do.
I think that's what this is going to represent. I think that's what 50 to 55 represents.
That's a big bet from Brock.
Big money, but it ain't the most.
It's a big bet from Brock.
And it's short term. So it's big money, short term, up front. We believe in you up front. We're not going to short you up front. But we are going to.
Why pay him more than the franchise tag value then?
Well, first of all, he's not on the franchise tag this year.
No, I'm saying if you're
51 or 41, which tag?
You can have him under contract for the next 3 years.
I'll be $97 million
in a messy scenario for $97 million. So why not just make that the deal? Full stop. Here's 2 years at 45 and 55 million each, all guaranteed up front. Maybe we're talking about the same thing here, but again, I come back to this.
I mean, that could be the structure. Who knows? Maybe it is.